for associations as members cut costs to recoup losses. I'm also thinking there will be many folks who will be fearful of travel, so in-person meetings will likely be impacted until a vaccine is created. What are you seeing, maybe in particular in your group, and how you think this might play out for you? And then Bennett, I'm going to come to you for the same question. Michelle?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jeff. Thank you for asking it. You know, it's interesting because right now we are dealing with this kind of uncertainty that depends on how long this will last. Our members, like all of your members, I'm sure, are in a situation where they know how to manage, you know, this month, next month, when this and if this starts going into this continued great pause that lasts through the summer and potentially even into the fall in one form or another. I think that there's a lot to think through. So from an association standpoint, it's important to think about how are you keeping your connectedness with your members in a way that you're on top of their current line of thinking. I will tell you an interesting thing, just thinking about the wine and spirit wholesale business. You know, everybody gets excited about the wine and spirits business, and for the wholesalers, our real point of pride is the integrity of the supply chain that we're critical to. And people see the numbers about what's been happening with wine and spirit sales generally, but what we're noticing is that in the news, and we talk about this a lot, those numbers are really reflective of one segment of the business, that part of the segment that's sold off-premise as opposed to in bars or restaurants, which is doing well, but those numbers are also a few weeks old. And so what's going to happen in the future? So we're really thinking through, while there may be some parts of the business that are up, there are other parts of the business like the restaurant and tavern business that has completely fallen away. It is non-existent. So in addition to just the difficulty of those business owners, it's all of the people that supply them. So as an association,
yeah, that's interesting.
It's really interesting to think about how quickly you need to be switching your topic focus with your members because of how the business is changing rapidly.
Well, and I think you make a really important point there that maybe there's one, and it's probably true for a lot of us on this call today, there are particular aspects of different parts of our businesses, professions, or trades that we represent that may be doing, frankly, doing very, very well, where simultaneously on the other end of the spectrum, there could be parts of our members' companies or organizations that simply are not. And so it's one of the rhetorical questions for right now for us to think about, right, is how do we balance all that? And especially like Bob Chalker and I and some others I'm sure on this call, we're leading global organizations. We have some parts of the world that have recovered from COVID or are recovering, other parts that are in the middle and so forth. And one of the conversations Bob and I have been having privately has been around how do you balance that? Before I move to Bennett to also provide some comments about Jeff's question, a reminder, we are recording this program. We meant to say this in the beginning and I forgot. So just please know that this program is being recorded for our peers who couldn't make it today. And maybe we'll try to remind you periodically throughout. Bennett, I'm sorry, do you want me to repeat that question or are you good?
I think a pretty good clarity on the question. Thank you, Peter, for that and lead in. But you know, just as an AMC, just given the general context of what we do as a business, you know, we work with lots of different industries and professions. So like you said, some people are obviously just trying to see if they're going to get through the next 2 or 3 weeks, and where other members, depending on what associations we're talking about, are actually seeing business upticks. Now, yeah, I think from a broader sense, going into 2021, you know, wearing the association CEO hat, I think, you know, clearly all of us want to get, you know, through tomorrow, but we know January 1st will come pretty quick. And just for us, as an example, we have 2 annual meetings right now scheduled in January 2021. We're already talking about, you know, do we even plan to hold those? And at what point would we decide to cancel those possibly? As a longer window than the ones we had that were, you know, scheduled in March, April, and May. But the point is, even if you have them, you know, it doesn't seem like that's going to be too far from now. It seems like an eternity, but it's really not. You know, we know that attendance numbers are still going to be dragging probably going into first quarter 21. I know clearly with all the groups that we manage in terms of the CEOs within our company that manage our various client associations, you know, we're already trying to look at best worst case budget planning for 21 as it relates to sponsorships and exhibits. And, you know, reality is, you know, it's going to be a long time before we kind of get back to some normalcy in terms of your, you know, our traditional revenue streams. And I think one thing that, I've seen a lot in terms of some commentary over different webinars the last few weeks is, reevaluating all of our reserve policies. All of us have reserve policies with context of, what those reserves are for and how long they will last. I don't think any of us envisioned kind of what we're all in now. And, even if you've got reserves, are they there for this kind of duration of time and in the level of disruption on all elements? So I think, clearly how we define short and long-term planning, at least as it relates to crisis management, it's definitely changed. And, I think that's definitely a good, hard way to learn that lesson, if you will, but we're all trying to work towards, what does 2021 look like, and even 2022 for that matter. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a really good point, and a number of good points, in particular about reserve policies. I know just last week we were reviewing our reserve policy, in as much as the market is down where it is. And to your point, these policies were written at times, in different times for different reasons. Nobody was necessarily predicting something like this. That could actually be probably whole nother webinar in terms of managing through this financially and so forth. And again, I know the ASAE staff are paying attention to some of this conversation, so we'll see where that goes. It's going to turn a little bit, if we can. I'm going to ask Elaine a question, in particular from a medical society perspective, Elaine. And I know we have a number of folks here from a number of different state and national medical groups, from what I could see in the registration list. All of us to some degree, but medical organizations in particular, Elaine, are trying to serve members who are serving so many others. And so you and your peers are trying to keep your own associations going, while also trying to simultaneously support these folks on the front line, medical professionals on the front line in this case. Can you talk to us a little bit about what your group has been experiencing and how you're sort of addressing the needs of the association, while you also address the needs of your frontline members?
Yeah, and I hope there are a lot of other medical folks from other associations who can jump in. It's been an astounding experience to represent cardiothoracic surgeons who are on the front lines of this battle. And the emails that I get from our doctors in Seattle and New York City are far more sobering than anything I have heard on the news, because they don't filter it. They're just telling you what they experience. Let me start by saying it is honestly an honor to be in an association right now serving those first responders, and we should all feel good about the jobs we do to help them. The biggest thing that we're working for on behalf of our members right now is the advocacy to work and communicate with the administration to get the supplies that everybody needs. My members are desperately in need of everything you've heard about on the news. They need N95 masks, they need ventilators, they need gowns, and our role has been pretty effective in working in coalitions with the medical community to reach out to the administration and to elevate the need and urgency of the supply side issues as it relates to the medical community. So advocacy, which is what an association is so well situated to do, has been very, very powerful for us. In addition to that, I would say the communications that we are offering folks right now, and associations no longer have to be the source for everything. You just need to be the catalyst to link everybody. If the critical care organization or the hospitalists or the hospital association or the AMA is the right place, we are the website where we can link you and find everything you need. So I think one of the roles we are all doing is learning how to collaborate rather than compete in this time of crisis. I would say the other thing we're doing is setting up some very fast but very powerful webinars from surgeons on the front lines who are talking about lessons learned and offering guidance to others who are about to navigate through this. And all of my colleagues in other medical specialties are doing this. So I think the other thing that medical societies are very much dealing with right now is how to treat patients who are non-COVID patients but need urgent care. What are the supplies? What are the protocols? And offering guidance papers that for the first time don't need to go through the board and the executive committee and be blessed by 27 committees and be endorsed and
yeah, great.
It's been a breakthrough moment for us as associations to realize that you need to develop these things and get them out there. And the bureaucracy that we once all lived and breathed is no longer the best way to do it. So I would say the advocacy, the webinars, the links to communications on our website, and the guidance papers have been what my members need and what my focus is as the medical association right now.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. In particular, again, another great conversation, and we will go back to some of these things as we get through questions. But you bring a couple of really good points. In particular, one that resonates with me is around new partnerships. Who yesterday was not a partner for whatever our political reasons were or are, and today they've become powerful partners. I often say to my team, members are unencumbered by facts, budgets, and politics. They just want what they want, and they just need what they need. And we spend a lot of time, as we all do, in association governance and structures and committees and all the nonsense that kind of comes along with working sometimes in this profession. And I think we've seen a lot of that just completely go away. We do have a question that's come in from the audience. And Nat, I do not mean to put you on the spot. And if you do not know the answer to this, please say pass. I will also say, before I ask this question, I meant to say this earlier, we 5 or 6 on this call are just peers exchanging knowledge and information. Other than Elaine, who is not a practicing lawyer, we are not giving legal advice, including Elaine's not giving legal advice. We're just a bunch of peers here trying to help each other. And I think we're going to get into a question here where we have to be a little careful. And so the caveat, and remember we're being recorded, the caveat to any answers we give you are check with legal counsel, check with your own legal counsel, your own insurance companies, your own bankers, et cetera, to make sure that you're getting what you need. So with that caveat, Nat, we have a question here from Joe, and the question is, do you believe that 501c6 nonprofits are eligible for the payroll protection program loans, not through the nonprofit carve-out of the CARES Act, but as small businesses that might otherwise qualify for small business loans? I can give a little bit of color to this, but I thought I might go to you first.
Sure.
If you need to say pass, man, just say pass.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, so 501c6 associations were clearly carved out of PPP.
Yes.
The issue is that, yes, there's so many other avenues for loans, but the reason the PPP was so important was it's forgivable loans. And so that doesn't exist in any other form. Even the EIDL loans, you're allowed to get $10,000 in help through the EIDL loans through SBA, but the PPP loans were forgivable. And there's a significant computation, and yes, that's a whole nother presentation that you'll find on our website. But that's honestly, ASAE is engaged significantly in lobbying, as many of you associations next signed on to something to enable C6s to get in it, maybe in the 4th tranche of the assistance by the federal government, but we'll see what happens. Right now, C6s are out. Right.
Yeah, and I was going to say that's exactly what we're seeing. So ASIS, and I probably failed to put my own self in context. I'm the CEO of ASIS International. We're a 34,000 global membership organization, individual members headquartered in Alexandria, Virginia. We have a staff of 5 in Brussels that help serve the general EMEA region. And we, of course, are looking at all these programs like everybody else. We are in as much financial, I guess, distress or need, if you will, as probably the next organization may be. And we came into this with 19 million in reserves and, generally speaking, in pretty decent shape, if you will. So we too are looking into these programs, and we're basically being told, no, you don't qualify. Now, I will tell you, I am aware of some colleagues in other organizations who are going to apply through the SBA process, right, to see what they get. They feel, these are my words, I guess not theirs, but they kind of feel like nothing ventured, nothing gained. So there are people who are attempting to do that. Please, Nat, go ahead.
There are other things there to assist associations, 501c6, whether it's the NOL carrybacks, so that's net operating loss carrybacks.
Right.
Again, a very accountant thing, so I won't go into that here. But deferral of payroll taxes, that's a significant cash flow potential. So there's other things to look at in CARES for 501c6. It's just not the forgivable loans to the PPP.
And C6s are also eligible for the EIDL through the SBA. So
this is Bob Chalker talking. Go ahead, Bob. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say C6s are also eligible for the EIDL through the SBA. It's not as favorable as the payroll protection plan, but it's still a very low interest rate loan for 30 years.
Right.
And they'll work with you. So that's another, and you can apply for both of those. If you're a C3, you can apply for both the payroll protection and the EIDL. So,
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Bob. So there's a second question here coming from Christine. It's pretty layered. Again, I think this could be a whole program. And so I'm going to read it, and I'm going to ask my panelists here, when I'm done reading it, maybe raise your hand if you're interested in taking it. Don't feel obligated, because I can try to take it, but I think it'll be the easiest way because I can see you, and I think it'll just be the quickest way. So here's the question. It says, whoops, hold on a minute. I just, okay. Hold on a minute. Where did it go? Christine, go back to, oh, here it is, sorry. It says, if not on this call, and we're going to attempt it, in the next 48 hours, and by the way, ASAE, this might be a great flash survey that you might be able to do. I don't know if it would be possible, but it says in the next 48 hours, can you tell me how folks are dealing with payroll? For example, are they suspending 401k matches, reducing salary with equity in mind? What salary caps are you using for what %? Are people considering furloughs? Are they weekly or monthly? Are people considering terminations? If so, what timelines are being used? This Christine goes on to say, we have a large board of about 70. Christine, we're very sorry to hear that, by the way, another program. So I need the quickest argument to get all this approved too. I have one, but I'm open to ideas. So Bob Chalker, I see you raising your hand, so we're gonna have you go first, please. And then Bennett, okay. Go ahead, Bob, unmute yourself though.
I got to unmute myself. There we go. So I'm living this right now. Peter, by the way, if you want to send, you're looking for something to do with some of those reserves, we'd be happy to have you send them our way. So
I don't have as much because the market went down. Just saying.
Yeah, well, either do I. and that was one of the things we faced. We've got our board and our finance committee a number of years ago made the decision that they were going to invest in the organization as opposed to the market. And so we have reserves, and we've got several months worth of operation, but not long term. And nobody conceived this. For us, our revenue went to almost zero. We basically make our money either through teaching education courses or conferences. So it was pretty dramatic. To me, there's a couple things. One is, I already said, the payroll protection program, if you're eligible, you ought to be looking at that. You can't beat that. That's the best deal going. We also went around and marshaled all the cash that we could in the organization. You may be surprised where you have cash stashed away. Or in accounts that you can have access to. But in the end, you got to have a plan when it comes to the people, because that's the majority of our cost. We looked at things like not contributing to 401ks and 10% pay cuts. And the reality was the impact of those were going to be so small. I mean, on a $1.5 million payroll, you maybe are talking about $100,000. Well, that's not going to get us through the weeks and months that we need to get through.
Right.
A furlough could work for you, but I think one of the things you have to be aware, and I think this is true in all states, it is in Texas, not-for-profits are treated differently when it comes to unemployment. So it's not treated like insurance that's shared equally. You get a bill back from the state somewhere in the future to pay all of the unemployment that you create, right? So lay Susie off and she gets $1,000 unemployment, you're going to get a bill somewhere in the future for that $1,000. And so when we looked at all those options, we came to the conclusion that we'd rather have our people working and being productive and focus on making sure they have good work to do than trying to reduce the headcount, reduce payroll. We're going to go after sources of funding beyond the couple government programs we've talked about. We've been able to get our bank to offer us a bridge loan, which works much like a construction loan. If we use it, we pay. If not, we don't pay. And then work on being productive with our people and getting new programs launched and making sure people are adding value. And that's where we've put our energy. I think you have to be really careful and make sure you measure what you get for what you're going to lose. And it's not just money, right? It's morale, skill sets, and talent. And I think it's, cutting somebody's 401k, maybe sounds good, but when you really add it up, the cost isn't worth it.
Right. Yeah, I think Bennett, you want to say something to this as well?
Sure, thank you. I just a couple of things, just for visualization. So obviously, in the AMC model, our full service client associations, the employees, if you will, are employees of the AMC and not the association itself. So in that sense, as a company, we as a company had saved and built up reserves primarily because we were in Florida. So we always were planning for the hurricane type crisis management to have some cash reserves, if you will, for the company to maintain employment. So we haven't done any layoffs or any furloughs or reduction in hours. But like Bob said, we looked at all the options, and when we looked at even doing, some of them in conjunction with each other, it really wasn't going to add up to a lot of savings. And our goal, as much as we could, is to maintain staff. And even though from a client delivery standpoint, the allocation of time, is different than it was 3 weeks ago. Obviously, we're not hosting annual conferences and doing registration management, that kind of stuff. But our communications and, effectively crisis management, helping our members, look for their own, the right resources for them, for their professions and their own businesses to stay open. We're not working less, we're just working in different places, if you will.
Exactly.
So, our boards have been our client boards have been really cognizant of that. And, in this context, not that any of us wanted to be here, but if anybody ever questioned the value of associations, I think they're starting to see it now. We obviously don't want to have to do this as a repeat next year, but I think certainly it does show the value of, what we bring to the table and how quickly associations can respond. So,
And Nat, do you want to take this? And also, Nat, as you're going to answer this question, tell me if you can answer the following question for David White, who says, does anyone know, or can we explain why C3s are eligible for PPP, but C6s are not? And again, if you have to say pass, feel free.
No, I won't say pass, but I did want to answer the first question just
Please.
with some reality. You recall the last time we were dealing with a recession, 08 timeframe. I work in the real world, the real numbers, and I look at the impact that had on associations. I will tell you that we prepare thousands of 990s, and so the metric that's on a 990 is how many W-2s did you issue? And so that's typically taken as the staff count, the FTE count. I know it's not perfect, but that's a metric we can use. Back in 09, $5 million association, the number was 32. In 10, it was 31. In 11, it went to 30. For $10 million associations, the number in 09 was 90. The number in 10 was 74. The number in 11 was 61. For $20 million associations, the number was 108 in 09, 104 in 10, and 92 in 11. I recognize that that's not all reductions in force, that's not all layoffs. What really happened was it took so much time because there really was a hiring freeze. There was multiple hat wearing by individuals on staff. But there was some reductions in force, there were some layoffs, and that was just a market devaluation. That wasn't an operational change that you're going through now. So I just want that sort of real life focus to come back to this. Not saying that anyone's mismanaging this or not handling it correctly, just bringing some facts sort of back to light from back in 08, 09, 10, 11. Because those are real numbers right off the 990s of associations, and those are ASAE's numbers from their operating ratio reports. So in answer to your question, why are C3s in and C6s out? It's C3s and C19s that are in, and C19s, or rather C6s and others like C4s, those are out. And honestly, it was a last minute change. I wish I had the answer as to why. I think the idea was that people were trying to help those organizations that are helping America, and they consider that to be the C3s without really understanding what C6s and C4s are. And so I think it was truly a misguided attempt. I see Susan's light coming on, so she might have something to add to that.
Just briefly, some of our contacts on the Hill said that one of the reasons why the C6s got knocked out of that is some of the large sports organizations, such as the NBA, are C6s. And so making them a part of the package and having any kind of financial aid going to those organizations, I think kind of spoiled things. And I'm not targeting them specifically, but I'm just saying that's kind of what we heard. So there are a lot of contributing factors as to why we weren't in COVID-3, but we're working hard to get into COVID-4 for all C6s right now. And we're focused on that, plus the loans, and plus having the government act as they did after 9/11 as a backstop for insurance. So some of these claims that have gaps and so forth, If we could do something similar to what happened with the Terrorism Act after that, then that's what we're advocating for now. So hang on for C4. It is moving very quickly, but we're doing our best to make sure that C6s are well positioned.
Thank you, Susan. I was literally sending you a private message saying, I'm going to ask you a GR question. Come on board. So thank you for coming. I appreciate that. So there are a lot of questions here in general that I received in advance of this call, and then some of you folks are sort of posting. And we're all concerned to some degree or another about our annual meetings, and or let's say revenue from live meetings. Maybe it's not just an annual meeting. Michelle, you and I were chatting a little bit kind of offline. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about what you've experienced? Bennett, maybe you can speak to it from a multiple client perspective. Bob Chalker, it dovetails into a conversation you and I had, and we had as a group here about your final move to webinars, which you guys have wanted to do forever, and some of your volunteers have not. So let's go, Michelle, Bennett, Bob.
Great. Thanks, Peter. We had a convention that's a $3 million, 2,500 attendee event that was scheduled to happen starting the 20th of April. We canceled that event, excuse me, on the 12th of March. So we canceled before all of the kind of state closures, social distancing requirements, which I think was really important for us to be leading on the need to make that determination. It's always tough to know when to do it, and it's a very difficult decision, obviously, because of not only the effect of the bottom line, which is dramatic, but also that opportunity to convene your members and to get together. You know, for so many people, the annual convention is the one thing that they choose to invest in or attending. And for us, our annual convention for our members is really a great business event where they're doing a lot of work with the rest of the supply chain, making those relationships, reinforcing those relationships. And so we're spending time thinking about and starting programs on how we can recreate that experience in the near term in a virtual environment. What things can we do for our exhibitor members and attendees who are going to be there so that they get that connection with our members, either virtually or at future events in some other way. But without a doubt, I think that what we look at from a revenue and experience position is going to change, and the meetings that we plan in the future are going to need to be very different. I think if we think about everything changing in a post-pandemic world, are people going to be as eager to go to large events
Right.
than before? Think about sporting events and concerts. Are you going to go to another event with 80,000 people in a stadium in the same way? And so how does that experience change? And so for all of us, I think this is really the time to step back and think, instead of just managing through the budget loss and the different events and the governance that would normally happen at a meeting, step back really and think about how do we lead through this change to what the new normal is going to be post-pandemic, and how do we set up our own organizations to position ourselves for the things that are important to us. Obviously, advocacy is always at the top of the list, but it is that networking communication that creates the stickiness of the association. And so finding those spaces in a different way is going to be very important.
Great point. I got Bennett, Bob, and then Elaine. I think you're telling me you want to say something. Okay, we'll go Bennett, Bob, and we'll go to Elaine.
Sure. I mean, certainly just looking at the trajectory of, meetings and events, again, as an AMC, and we've got multiple events. We had, effectively our first one that got impacted was March in Seattle, and the hotel was 5 miles from the nursing home that we all saw in the news. So that one ended up postponing. It's actually postponed twice. But we've had, like I said, at this stage, knowing what we know 3 or 4 weeks later, for most of our interaction with boards of directors, obviously, at least for annual conferences through probably mid to late July, we're leaning, if we can, get to the stage where we make a decision to cancel instead of postpone. Because I think our concern is, what is the lag time to what everybody's discussed is when people will be comfortable to coming back, and quite frankly, will the dollars be there for exhibitors and sponsors and especially corporate, type sales representatives that are working the trade shows? When will their travel bans actually even be lifted? So, I think the issue at play clearly is, we have as we all know, we have a very strategic partnership with our hotel and resort partners across the world. And we, when times are good, times are good. When times are bad, we need to work together in a very collegial way as much as we can, even though each of us have business decisions to reach. And so I think the issue is timing is everything. And, we have some boards that are pushing to cancel now. And we're like, no, let's give it a few weeks, because quite frankly, the leverage in some respects, probably the longer you you get that sweet spot of, they may cancel on you without penalty, without you having to be the bad cop. So I think just measuring, looking at 30, 60, 90 days out and looking at your cancellation clauses, what the best case, worst case scenarios are in terms of, canceling, postponing, and when does that actually occur. I will tell you that, certainly through the first quarter of 21, any meetings that we have through that period of time, we're already starting to revisit and look at contract clauses and trying to see if we can add some addendums to those meetings again, because I think we're conservative in the standpoint that, we're not certain, even if there's an all clear, that the first quarter 2021 people are going to be comfortable coming, certainly at the level that we're used to. So we're already trying to look at that as well going into next year.
That's a great answer. I got Bob and then Elaine, then we'll move on to a different, of course, an annual meeting conversation or live meeting conversation can be 14 webinars, and we would never have enough time. But Bob and Elaine, please, and then I'll move on. There's a question in the Zoom chat that I want to get to. Go ahead, Bob, unmute.
Right. I'm just going to ditto what Michelle said relative to the meeting, the importance of the meeting. Ours was scheduled to start March 14th, and we literally had to make our decision before. It was in Houston, and when the day I made the decision, there was no cases of coronavirus even in the county area around the city. So it was a tough decision. Thankfully, we did have insurance, and that I believe is going to help us. But it brings a whole nother layer of complexity to the thinking. Can you actually cancel? Or one of the things in these clauses are you've got to make every effort to mitigate losses. So we've actually postponed to June, but we're going to do a hybrid model. And so we'll have in-person and hybrid, a remote or virtual attendance. For us, though, it was really interesting because the conference was important, but the real kicker for us are the 680 some courses that we do around the world, face-to-face teaching, which was our primary model. And Peter, you and I talked and you brought it up. We had been working towards a plan to use distance learning and technology for delivering education in a hybrid model, because some of the work that we teach has a hands-on element. You got to teach skills. So there's a model of it mixing partially online, partially in person. But we were facing a lot of resistance from members and leaders and instructors, frankly, people who benefited by teaching these courses, to moving to this hybrid model. But we've been working towards it, and thankfully so. We've pulled ahead by about 12 months to 18 months, things that we were planning on launching anyways. And it's worked out extremely well. And there is opportunity in all of this. So all of the resistance that we would have faced or had been facing just sort of melted away. In fact, for the most part, we look like heroes because we're able to take these programs and get them online. And not just because about protecting NACE's revenue, that's a byproduct. It's being able to serve our members well. They need this education. They need these certifications to do their work. And so if they can't get their certification, they're not able to work. So we've really flipped the whole thing. And in fact, we've got a motto. We're trying to make lemonade out of lemons, and it's just ramping through the organization. Peter's seen it. We actually even created a logo around it. But this idea that says, look, we've been handed this. We don't like it, and it's ugly, but how do we better serve? And how do we take advantage of the things we've been working on in the direction we've been moving to bring them forward and implement them? So in this case, our strategic plan has been a really valuable tool. We're digging into it and saying, okay, what can we pull into today that allows us to better serve and meet this time? And I made the commitment to my leadership, we're not putting this genie back in the bottle, right? So when this is over, it's not like distance learning is going to go away and we're going to go back to the old way. In fact, the feedback we're getting from the people who are in those courses is incredibly positive. So
Right.
I think we dug in to say it will be different in the future. Hybrid attendance will be a normal part of conferences.
Yeah, I think as we go to Elaine, I think you make some really important points, because there have been some questions that I'm seeing within this webinar, the chat room, as well as the questions we had, is even though many of us are still in the throes of COVID today, COVID recovery, so-called COVID recovery will come, and people are kind of asking throughout some of their questions, where are silver linings? Where is the lemonade? You know, how do we look forward, even if we're in the midst of it? And I think you're getting at some examples with NACE in particular, where maybe many of us are doing webinars and have for 10 years, whereas at NACE, for whatever the different reasons were, that wasn't a thing, and now it will be. That's a silver lining for you, and other organizations certainly have theirs. Elaine, did you?
Can I just say,
sorry.
It's more than webinars. It's really, truly distance learning. We've been doing webinars for 10 years, but we're talking about
Okay, I see.
distance learning done with adult learning experts and professionals and all that stuff. I mean, it's amazing some of the things.
Right, competency demonstration, things like that. Elaine, I'm sorry.
beyond
And then
that-
Michelle.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Elaine, then
Sorry,
Michelle.
Just
Yeah,
real-
no worries,
just
you're good.
Real quickly on a checklist of things for people who are worried about their meetings. Right now, you should take a look at your contracts if you're still trying to figure out what to do, and see if you can limit your room block, so that at least you can limit some of your exposure if you still have a live contract and you're not sure what's going on. We found that in working with the hotels, if you offer to rebook in subsequent years, they're far more receptive. That's tricky for an annual meeting, but we've been rebooking some of our smaller meetings to 2022. And people have been, and the hotels are very cooperative. They understand the mess we're all in. They're in as deep as anybody else, so that's been helpful. I think virtual meetings will be part of every annual meeting going forward, and they'll just make for a new model that we all are talking about. The other thing I encourage everyone to do is to check, because we were going to cancel a meeting in October in Rhode Island, and the conference facility has sadly been turned into a field hospital. In San Diego, the conference facility is now a homeless shelter. In those instances, you are not on the line for all the wrong reasons for the liability on this. So this is a very rapid situation, and I encourage everyone to check with their attorneys and their insurance carriers. And every single law firm and her sister right now are doing webinars on how to handle contract issues. So there's a lot of really good free resources out there right now.
Hey, Elaine, thank you. And I want to acknowledge there are a lot of questions I know in the chat box. And of course, as I'm talking, my lawn service company has appeared to mulch and do my lawn. So I sincerely apologize if there's any noise you can hear. There's nothing I can do about it. I will say there are a lot of questions in the chat box around specific questions around contracts and things like that, which Elaine is getting at. We don't have time. We have about 10, 15 minutes left. We don't have time to get into all that here. But again, I know Karen's on the call here listening in for potential other webinars that will deep dive, and that may be one area. Michelle, did you want to comment on this before I go to a different little bit of a different
I
subject?
actually wanted to, thanks, Peter. I wanted to talk about something that Bob brought up that I think is
Yeah,
really,
please.
you were talking, Bob, about how we position ourselves going forward, and we were talking about it in terms of the association itself, which is certainly a very important thing for us to think about. But I know in the back of all of our minds, which should really be in the front of all of our minds, is how does business change for our members? Because whatever we assumed in the past is not going to be the assumption in the future. And I think that the generation post-pandemic is going to look at the way business happens and is conducted in a very different way with very different expectations than certainly the business in the past. And so we're thinking through how we, and I've used this phrase a few times, and I think it's important, instead of just managing the change, how are you leading through the change? So helping your members think about what are the big issues for our industry, what are the threats to our industry, what are the areas that we traditionally have had to work and advocate to protect. But in addition to that, positioning that we should put our industry in for whatever that new normal comes in to strengthen their position for that next generation. This is where we really kind of earn our keep as the leaders for the association, is providing that home for our members to have those thoughts and have that conversation in a way that's going to really strengthen their businesses in the future, which makes it far off when everybody's thinking about furloughs and unemployment and just keeping the lights on.
Yeah.
Now is the time we have to think about that.
Michelle, I think you make such a great point, and I think, you know, as I've had these sort of discussions one-off with my peers different times over the last 3 weeks, and I think it's probably true of the 470 so folks assembled here, right? We're all at different places in this COVID spectrum, as I call it, at the office, where there are just some days where you're so overwhelmed with the tacticals, the contracts, the field hospital, that, you know, the convention center that's now the field hospital, your board member wanting something that you know, yesterday was important and today doesn't seem important. It can be really hard to get where you just said, but there have to be, and I think you make this really good point for folks here, we all have to find that time in our day or our week to make sure that we are planning for that future. Because as my friend Jeff Morgan said in an exchange he and I had here getting ready for this call today, it's gonna come. And we can't be blindsided by what we call at ASAE as COVID recovery. You know, we have a group of people, for example, internally dealing with what we call COVID today and all the things that go with that, our annual meeting in September and our webinars and all those things that we deal with. And I have a group assigned to COVID recovery, because as a global organization, I know the generally speaking, Asia Pac is coming out of this. Generally speaking, Europe is ahead of the US when it comes to this. US is where we know we are. Latin America lags behind us for whatever reasons we can debate later. And so we as a global organization, and I know Bob Chalker and others on this call fall into this, we're some are in COVID recovery and some are in COVID today, right? So regardless of whether we're a state or a national organization or international, to your point, we got to plan for that future because it's coming. Nat, Bob, yeah, and then I want to go to Nat with a quick question. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I add one other comment? Because I
Please.
saw a couple chats flipping up about force majeure and things like that.
There's a lot of questions.
Advice. You need to go talk to your providers, whether it's the hotels or the restaurants or the convention centers, and have a conversation with them and lay it out. So when we made the decision to postpone or potentially cancel our conference, this was long before anything had been put in place. We decided to reach out to the city of Houston, all the hotels. We had over 40 venues that we had some form of contract with. And every one of them but one was willing to work with us. And it didn't cost us anything to make the ultimate move and changes. The one, it took a phone call to have somebody higher up in management. We eventually got to an owner, and right away they came along with us too. My point being is, yes, your contracts can protect you, but doing some business and having some conversations, because we are all in this together, we're finding people are very cooperative and willing to try to find solutions that are mutually beneficial to both.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
where you start talking about force majeure, just pick up the phone and say, hey, could you work with us?
Yeah, I agree. And it's a great segue to go into Nat here, because I think you're making the point, this really important point about talk to people. So
Yeah.
Nat, you're representing what we call the key consultants, what I call the key consultant business partner, side of this coin, so to speak. Can you talk to us just a little bit? We've got about, 7-8 minutes left. Can you just talk to us a little bit about, from the consultants and business partners aspect, how do we, on the CEO of the association side or the staff of the association side, how do we help the consultants and business partners be better, different, more for us, so that we can be better, different, more partners for you, for the collective you? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, and I would actually frame it slightly different, which is
Yeah, please do.
We've
Please.
always been your partners and always been part of the solution. So it's not a handout. It's not that sort of need on this side. It's like, how can we help you? And just when you look at the number of consultants that we have as members and the types of consultants, the ones that jump right out at you are accountants and lawyers and investment advisors and insurance advisors right off the bat. Certainly technology advisors as well. All of those have played an important role already. But then you start to look at whether it's marketing and PR and communications. We're in a tough position right now where literally public policy appeals and membership communications, commercial real estate. Has anyone looked at taking a look at your lease? Now's the time to renew early to get the rent abatements to give you the cash flow you need. So has anybody talked to their banker, not just about lines of credits and SBA loans and EIDL loans and PPP, but are we talking about maybe getting some equity out of our building? We could utilize something that isn't on the balance sheet right now and utilize that to create some cash flow. Looking at strategic planning and facilitation and general consulting, these are your small businesses. And so we would want you to work with us to assist you. And so not the infomercial, but really just the honest appeal to look where you've always looked for support. And as the Key Consultants Committee, we appreciate being asked to the table today.
Yeah, no, of course. And my friends are reminding me this program goes until 3:15. See, it takes a village, it's true. So we have more time than what I said, so apologies. So there's a question that our friend Sharon Swan sent in. For those of you that don't know Sharon, she's the CEO of the American Society for Clinical Pharmacology and Therapeutics, and I've known Sharon a long time, and she's a great thinker. Sharon asked this question that Bob Chalker and Elaine, Bob Chalker and Michelle, you were sort of getting at a few minutes ago. And she says, well, we understand triage mode is the current flavor of the day. We all have to have a plan for the remainder of 2020, and of course, 2021 will come. She's asking specifically if we can speak as a group to, and I'm going to have each of you in this call that I can see, let me know which one of you is by raising your hand want to maybe take this, but she's asking us about scenario planning and what are we doing? How are we looking at scenario planning from a best, mediocre, worst sort of scenario? And I'm going to add to this and say, and to what extent do we include our teams or not in those types of conversations around that notion of managing fear, managing that sort of thing. So who in my panel wants to take this first? Oh, I see lots of them. Michelle, you're so brave. You win the first glass of wine I buy the next time we're all together in person.
I love it. I love it. We can even do virtual happy hours. All good.
I'd like that too.
So without a doubt, when it comes to this type of planning, the first thing on the list is usually budget and finances. And it's good to go through the process of, best, mid, and worst. In our case, we actually just did 2 scenarios, kind of a cuts and then deeper cuts. And the way we do it in our organization is it happened within each of our departments, making recommendations, and then that rolled up into the larger P&L, which is a conversation for all of our executive team and the leadership. But everybody should be, in my mind, everybody should be in that conversation, because you should be weighing the question of, is this more important than that? And it may go cross department. There are times when we have to think about a phrase that we use, which is a great thing, I think, for everybody just to think about, is accountable, responsible for the element, accountable to the mission, right? So I'm responsible for my element within the organization in my department, but ultimately we're all accountable to the mission of the association. So at times we may take a deeper cut in one area or another for that. But I also think that this is the time that you start your team in the conversation about how you want to structure the organization going forward. Are there changes that you can make now because this is the perfect time to make those changes? Is your org chart, are your offerings to your members, the types of programs that you're putting together? We all know that we have these programs that we've kept on, even though we don't think they have a whole lot of value, but there's those few members who we love that we want to take care of, and we keep doing these programs for them. Maybe you're still printing your membership directory because that gal really wants that book. These are the times to make those changes. And I think that that's where you get the most buy-in from your team, the more you engage everybody in the conversation. The other
Sure.
thing to say, as far as the fear factor, fear comes from a lack of knowledge and understanding. The more you can provide clarity into what's going on, it may not change things necessarily, but at least there's a greater understanding. So I'm always
Right.
inclusiveness.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I'll just give a quick ASIS perspective. We do a lot of scenario planning. We generally scenario plan anyway. It's sort of a part of the culture of the way we do business. Now we are uber scenario planning. I'm not suggesting we do it like we're doing it now and the extent to which we're doing it now. But one of the things that I have found interesting, I was a CEO for 7-8 years at my former organization. I've been here at ASIS now for 4. And like I said, scenario planning is a part of my general business life. But what's interesting, I said 10 days ago to my CFO, we were saying things like, oh, I can't imagine X will happen at Y%, but let's plan for it. And like 8 hours later, Y% happened. You're like, oh, Wow. So there is no, Bob Chalker's laughing. I can see you laughing, Bob Chalker. You know, part of my point I'm trying to make here is that you have to plan for everything that you think can't even happen. Who thought that a convention center would be used as a field hospital? I mean, I certainly, and I think I'm pretty decent at what I do, and I didn't think of that. So I say this to say, I think for all of us, I think Sharon asked a really good question. I have found it so valuable to be able to work through my own kind of personal, if you will, professional network, to ask Elaine what she's doing and go to Bob offline and say, you know, what are you doing? And I just urge everybody here, there's a lot of questions we're not going to get to. I know some folks are asking for people on this call. Nat, if you see in the chat column, for example, some people are asking for some different information. Elaine, you're getting asked a couple of questions somewhere in here too. We'll make sure to the extent we can, we go back and answer. But I just would encourage you all, reach out to us after this call if there's something specific you want or need from us, and or if there are other people that you need to be connected to. That's what the ASAE membership is in part about, us helping each other through our own networks. So if you're asking questions here we don't get to, please don't give up. Come back through either Reggie or I guess maybe Rebecca Hawk, or you can come to me directly or any of the panelists, and we will either answer your question from our perspective or try to get you what you need. I got Nat and then Bennett. Go ahead, Nat.
I want to go back to one of the comments you made, Peter, which was, you know, you started with that good thing. We went through that reserve policy practice a while ago, and I've actually gotten a few emails from clients that said, thank God we did the data-driven reserve policy.
100%.
And so
Yep.
The idea behind looking at technology, infrastructure, looking at legal issues you face, looking at advocacy issues you face, looking at a canceled meeting, these were all part of that structure to create that. Now,
Absolutely.
you talked then about going to scenario modeling, and honestly, you're just reverse engineering that process right now. What if we get a dip in membership because of all this by 10, 15%? At the same time, we have to cancel next year's spring meeting because
Exactly.
COVID comes back and we don't have a vaccine yet. You know,
Exactly.
so everything's about safety right now, and it will continue to be about safety. And so we have to think in terms of how long will that take and when will it reoccur, and build that model based on percentages and ideas around that. And so it's cash flow modeling, but it's also how do the financials look? Some of it's cash flow and some of it's real financials.
Yeah,
so
100%.
All of that takes into lots of different scenarios.
Yeah, no, thank you. Great points. Bennett?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to kind of parallel a couple of the topics, including just the consulting element, if you will,
Please.
and just, you know, give a recommendation, you know, if people haven't done it already. I'm not saying that they haven't, but just, you know, we're all relying on subject matter expertise, you know, whether it's internal or external. So our accounting firms, you know, outside general counsels, if we have them, you know, just certainly the bankers clearly are in the mix of that. And I think all of us are clearly talking to all of those individuals and organizations on a daily basis. But I think one thing, you know, I would recommend is clearly, if you haven't done it already, is get those groups of people together, at least on one call or two calls, to say, here's where we are, here's what our objectives are. And there's so much information that's flowing so fast. And, you know, if the peer group, if you will, in terms of your outside consultants and subject matter experts, your advisory group, if you will, getting them on the call together so they can have hear the message all at the same time and kind of share information cross collaborative, if you will, so that they can help, you know, really facilitate solutions much faster if you're doing it instead of one-off conversations with 5 or 6 different, you know, organizations or people. Just bringing them together once or twice during the course of your decision making, I think, has been very valuable for us.
You're saying instead of doing it one-off, call your accountant, yeah,
it's a little bit of both.
Yeah,
it's a little bit of both.
Thank you. So I've got 2 hands that have been raised, and I'm gonna look to Reggie here to help me. I've got Betsy Boyd Flynn, and forgive me, I got one other. Oh, Julie Novak. I got Betsy Boyd Flynn and Julie Novak.
Do Betsy first, okay?
Betsy first, yes, sir. Betsy, can we hear you?
Yes, I think you can.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just wondered, you know, as a state CEO, I am also in a lot of communication with my colleagues in other states, and I assume that most folks are doing that as well. and it's not, I think one of the most important things that I'm doing, and I'm not, this is more of an observation, I suppose, but it's a piece of the recovery, I think, is along the lines of planning for advocacy or doing advocacy around these issues, we're seeing opportunities open up through this crisis to advance some of the goals that we've been pursuing for a long time. And I'm just wondering how you're engaging your board in that kind of thinking as they may be on the ground battling whatever it is they're battling. And obviously for medical associations, it's a little of a different sort of crisis right now. But just wondered if you could comment to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I can certainly try to, or does anybody on any of my panelists know? Susan Robertson, do you want to maybe speak to that at all from an ASAE perspective, or do you want me to try to take that? I'm happy to do it. I just didn't want to.
I'm sure happy to take it.
Yeah, please.
I can tell you what we've done is that we have a board policy. We have policy statements that the board approves on an ongoing basis. What we've done as of late, because as you point out, Betsy, things are changing pretty quickly, and there are opportunities to advance some things that are very important to C6s and associations overall right now. We've updated our officers when our position is going to change or there's a significant shift in a position we may have taken early on in the COVID crisis, and now we see things differently based on feedback that we're getting from the Hill. So it's really now confined to our officers. If we felt like we needed to update the full board beyond just updating them on our activities, we would also do that.
I muted myself. Sorry, I got Bob Chalker.
Peter.
Thank you, Susan.
We've done very similar to what Susan just described. Two things that we've done that have found very valuable. One is early in this, we established a weekly meeting with the members of my finance committee and my executive committee for me to give them an update of what's going on. And for every organization, it's different. Where does the power lie in your organization? For me, it's those two committees. The other thing I did was there were certain things I asked for pre-approval on. For example, they have given me approval to go at least $2.5 million into our reserves if I need to. Because some of this decision making, you don't have time to convene committees or wait till Friday to, if something great or unexpected happens. So
absolutely,
there's a series of pre-decisions that I've asked both the board and the finance committee for that I now have, and it's documented, and we can go forward, and they understand the reasoning. So I love the idea of the coalition to your outside advisors. I also think there's great value in bringing key core member leaders together in a common conversation as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. So we have just a few minutes left, and I think, Elaine, I'd like to end with the conversation that you and I have been having, and I've been having with, honestly, a number of our peers over the last 2 or 3 weeks at different times and for different reasons. This notion of how challenging it is for we as CEOs to manage and lead in a time of such significant disruption, and trying to put a good, brave, positive face on things for our staff, for our members, for our other, for related colleagues, when behind the scenes and maybe in our own heads, the world is falling apart, so to speak. Those are my words, Elaine, not yours. And so can you just talk a little bit about to us, how are you finding like you're managing through these times? How are you putting that brave face on to staff? What type of information are you willing to share, maybe not share with staff in terms of not scaring people too much or whatnot? And then maybe some of my other panelists can just give me the high sign that they maybe want to take a crack at this too. I got Bennett, okay. Elaine, do you mind starting?
Sure. So first of all, I think being an association CEO is lonely even in good times.
Amen, sister.
You're kind of that link between the staff and the board, and you don't live in either world and you live in both. So it's always a little bit challenging now more so than ever. I think the first thing to do to be on top of your game at this time is to stay informed. And by that, I mean somewhere between stay informed, but not panic. So somewhere between listening to Tony Fauci and binge watching Tiger King on Netflix, there's a happy medium there that we all got to stay kind of on top of. I've done both, and both are incredibly scary for different reasons.
There are a lot of CEOs who are agreeing with you right now. Although I have to say, I think Tiger King might scare me a tiny bit more.
For anybody who's had a bad board president, fine line. So I think, staying informed but not getting sucked into the vortex of the bad news is step one. obviously, I think you have to have a go-to group of colleagues who you can talk offline and honestly with and have a real conversation. You know, you don't want to spill your guts to the board chair or to your staff, but you have to be able in this time, because you're not only dealing with the usual association challenges, you're dealing with your own family, your in-laws, your kids, your grandchildren, your neighbors, your friends. You're hearing stories. And so you have to have a go-to group of colleagues as well as personal friends, and use that group effectively. I think you have to stay in contact with your staff incredibly regularly. For some people, that's an email. I tend to pick up a phone and talk to people one-on-one because you get much better stories about what's happening to them. But I email my staff every week. I tell them not only what we're doing as an organization, but I tell them a little bit, I'm working on a jigsaw puzzle. Here's what I cooked over the weekend. What'd you see on Netflix? And being personal in a time of crisis, I think, is very helpful to staff who are looking to leadership, not just for how you're dealing with it financially, but how you're dealing with it personally. Obviously, you got to stay healthy. So you got to take a walk, and you got to, not have too many drinks, but enough to calm yourself down and stay healthy. I personally, and maybe this is a girl thing, Peter, but I think a good cry now and then is not out.
Hey, listen, it's okay to cry, right, Nat? Nat's going to shake his head. Yes.
I've had differences. I've had lively conversations with some of my male colleagues who don't view that as necessary, and I
well, Bob Chalker and Nat and Bennett and I want to say, and Reggie Henry, we view it as a necessity, gentlemen, do we not?
The last thing
kidding aside, I think that's fair. I'm sorry.
The last thing I would say is, kind of curtail the number of webinars and communications and emails that you're all trying to have with everybody. It's a triage. It's just an onslaught right now. And when you work at home, it's very hard to separate yourself from work. People said to me, I jokingly say, doctors don't make house calls anymore. No, they actually call my house relentlessly all day and night. So you really have to balance it and compartmentalize a bit in order to muster through and stay positive.
Thank you. I got Bennett, and then Michelle, did you want to say something? Then you can wrap us up, Michelle. Bennett, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just, I guess the theme of the day, to Elaine's point, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so along a lot of agreement with what she said, I think, 24/7, we could be in communication with members and board members. And although we think we're probably providing value, if we do that, we're going to burn out pretty quick, not only as the CEO, but our staffs too. And so I think, just like she said, just providing some time during the day where you shut the phone off for at least a half an hour, if not more, and check out and take a little bit of personal time to kind of refresh and take a breath, because this is not the time to burn out, but we could quickly do it if we don't balance that out. So I think, like you said, overall as a group, transparency is crucial. I think certainly, I think in this respect, showing some vulnerability as it relates to being human, showing, we're all human in this, and we're only going to get through it together as people. So I think for finding that balance between transparency and vulnerability, and level of detail, you got to provide the good and the bad news, but you got to tailor it to the audience so that they understand it, and that, again, just continue to reiterate to them that we're in a good place, and paint show the facts as they are, and then talk about daily, weekly, what you're doing and how you're going to get there together. And I think we'll all make this to the other side.
Yeah, great advice. Michelle, did you want to have one last word before we wrap up here?
Sure, and I don't think it's going to be that profound. So
oh, I bet it will be.
Not anything amazing, but for those people that do, Elaine will end with profound. Wonderful.
She's got her finger up. I see her.
One thing that I've noticed, and those that traditionally work from home have probably figured this out, but you miss the water cooler time. And it isn't much the chit-chatting, because we are getting that in. It's the walking to the water cooler.
Yes.
90 seconds, that break here and there, because I think what we're all finding is we go from this to that to the next, and there is no break in the entire day. And by the end of the evening, you're exhausted and you don't know why. And so you've got to find what's the equivalent of walking to the water cooler, walking to the copier, walking to the, across the hall to ask.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's really great advice. Truly is. Elaine, one more thing before we wrap up.
Real quickly, yeah. On some days I've taken a total of 12 steps. That's not good, but I was going to say one thing, and I'm generally not an overly optimistic person, but I truly believe this. At the end of this, whenever it ends, and it will, there will be a joy to coming to an annual meeting. There will
Agreed.
be a craving of community again that can never be replaced with virtual distance learning, no matter how effective and how much it's here to stay. I believe that at the end of this, the association community will emerge stronger because people will understand that an annual meeting is so powerful for all the reasons we're experiencing now. So I think at the end of this, we will stand stronger if we can
Yep.
just soldier through.
Profound words to end by. I'm going to say my own thank you. And to the panelists, I really appreciate the prep time you took with me and with Rebecca and with the ASAE team. Susan Robertson, from our panel to you, we thank you and your staff for your leadership through this crazy time. I know that Karen was on the phone today getting lots of good ideas for other quick platforms like this that we can stand up that are somewhat organic like this, always a little scary to do. Because you're never quite sure how you're going to manage through it, but I think we did okay. Thank you very much. Did you, Susan, or Reggie, or Rebecca, did you have any closing housekeeping before we wrap up?
The only housekeeping is to say thank you to each and every one of you.
Oh, you're welcome.
It was so inspirational to hear the sharing and the real true intent to help each other. It's what it's all about. That's why we're here. So thank you to everyone who participated, but thank you all for
You're
bringing
welcome.
so much. And Peter, thank you for your leadership on this.
Oh,
Much appreciated.
Totally my pleasure. You guys are always great to partner with. And I think Karen's telling us here that we're going to receive a recording of this, so people will be able to share this if they need to. Again, networking is where it's at. Don't hesitate to contact ASAE or anybody on this panel. We're here to help you any way we can. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Reggie. Appreciate it, man. Be well.